somebody away.
Oh my
Your
God.
picture.
Okay. All right. Looks like we have folks here on time tonight. We have Joey already. We have Anthony, and who knows? We could have people incognito out there. We don't know. It doesn't matter. If you're here, we're glad that you're here. It's Saturday night. Divided we stand. This is the 13th of January, and it is our 199th show. We're one short of 200, and that's a big thing for us. It's a lot of shows for a program that probably we thought was going to last for a year or two, but apparently the Trumpists are still at it, so our job isn't done. If you're not aware of this channel and you're just kind of floating on in, this is Divided We Stand on YouTube and on Facebook. If you've never seen this channel, we are a group of people who commiserate once a week and actually nightly on our Facebook page about the idea that this country is divided. It has been divided, and that right now there's no sense in being together if the opposition doesn't negotiate with you. The situation is untenable. That's what it is. So we only ask that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are not monetized. We're not looking for anything from you. We don't make any money off of this. So you can be rest assured that we're legit. Also, if you are on Facebook, we ask that you join the Facebook Divided We Stand group, which is a very popular page. It is a private group, but we do have a very strong viewership, so to speak. And we ask that you join us there. There is a short survey that you have to take prior to joining, but that's not a big sacrifice considering all the fun things that'll come your way. In any case, I'd like to introduce my good friend, journalist, educator, and co-host, and that would be David Price. Dave, good to see you.
Hey, Brian. Hey. Welcome from cold and shivering Crystal City. Just 3 metro stops from Donald Trump's house. Oh, wait a minute. It's not Donald Trump's house. That's right. We're fighting to make sure that it never becomes Donald Trump's
Is
house
his
again.
piece of shit hotel still there? He sell that?
Well, yeah, but he actually sold it, and he sold it to a corporation that used the name Waldorf Astoria. So now not only is there a Waldorf Astoria in New York, there's one on Pennsylvania Avenue, and in kind of a neat gesture, I think, one of DC's most famous chefs is also somebody who might someday win a Nobel Prize for peace because of his world hunger things that he does, Jose Andres. Uh, when Trump first came out, if you remember, with the Mexicans are rapists, that's kind of the start of a lot of this. Um, Jose had signed a contract to put a restaurant in Trump's hotel. He immediately avoided the contract. Trump sued him. Jose won. And but now, hopefully, he won't get to regain the White House. But Brian, looking at it, and we'll talk about it tonight. There's still. I wish I could be more optimistic, but there's just a number of things working right.
You were saying.
I was saying before I was so rudely knocked off by yourself. There's a lot of jealousy here, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
Okay.
So would you just hit a wrong
And that's
button
our
or what
show
happened?
for tonight, folks. Thank you for showing up. Okay.
No. It's not our show. As again, once again, you have proven, as you do virtually every show, that you are to the world
Of
of live
podcasting.
viewcasting. You are what Donald Trump is to the presidency. We can still laugh about it, but there's a lot of things this week. I'm sure you want to talk about some of them. But let's start with Donald Trump. What's up with you and Donald
Well,
Trump and what you saw this week, what you heard this week?
Dave, I've mildly been following his case in New York, where I guess they're trying to settle on the amount that he's going to have to pay. And everybody's excited because his attorney made some type of mistake and some ridiculous argument that he has immunity and that yes, he could shoot somebody or he could assassinate somebody with his SEAL team, whatever that was. But the bottom line goes back to some shows we've had in the past about Steve Bannon. The bottom line is, Dave, even if he's convicted, I mean, well, he is convicted already, but even if he has to pay a certain amount, he gets to appeal. And that is, his wheelhouse. He knows how to deal with that. So I guess my point is our legal system so shot that no matter what happens, he gets away with it because of all these appeals. And then eventually, you know where it goes. Eventually, it works its way up to the Trump court. So in a certain sense, the fix is in. You don't need to be Kreskin to figure this thing out.
Well, you are correct. The courts move at their own speed, okay? And for those who don't follow courts all the time, or that familiar with them, it seems like, how come? Why? Why is it taking, from the January 6th? Why are we still arresting people and taking them through and a lot of it is it just moves slowly, and you may not have to worry about it, right? If President Trump has his way, he might just be the only judge in America, and whatever he says goes. I mean, you're fired, like in The Apprentice.
Right.
You're and of course, as we point out almost again weekly, one of the problems lies in the fact that we should have appeals process. I mean, you got to have appeals, okay? And you can't deny somebody an appeal.
Absolutely not. But you.
So
I don't think it was the intent in this process. I don't think it was the legal intent to be able to stall something for 15 years.
No, but certainly lawyers are not among our dumbest people for the most part, and they'll do whatever it takes for their client. People could say, "Well, how could?" Well, I'm sure Trump has a couple lawyers around that actually believe in him. How, I don't know, but they're casting the die that Trump will return to power, and they will return to power.
And they'll make it right. So no matter what they do, they'll inoculate themselves from any type of ethical criticism because they'll be the correct one.
What happens is, too, that any attorney will tell you that their job is to provide the best representation for their client. Now, in Donald Trump's case, right now, it would be in his best interests if none of these cases were adjudicated before the election. Right. And by fully adjudicated, I should say, that would, and you point out, Brian, that I think all four of the cases, 91 felony counts in four separate filings, four separate cases, none of them I don't think will be adjudicated until the Supreme Court rules. And we'll find out more. I mean, again.
Why would you even expect them, Dave? I'm talking about the Supreme Court. I know we're jumping ahead, but eventually it's going to come down to the Supreme Court because he's got enough friends, various justices around the country who are willing to, do the dirty work. Why would we expect anything different from Gorsuch and Kavanaugh? It's like, waiting for the Eagles to finally win a game. It's like you're losing 5 of the last 6. Not that I want to get into sports, but the way you practice is the way you play, and you just don't turn things around a dime. So what would make you think that somehow the Supreme Court would say, you know what, on second thought?
Well, I think first of all, I think there's a few justices that you can rule out will always rule in Trump's favor. I would be surprised if Thomas didn't.
Mm-hmm. And he won't recuse himself, so that's
Well,
that
that's
makes it even
that's
worse.
something. Now that will be interesting because there will be calls for him to recuse
Right,
himself,
but this
and
is
he won't.
exactly what I'm saying. This is all part of
I
it.
know.
It's a
I
clear
know.
indication that that court is bought,
Um, well, certainly there are
and it didn't have to
five.
pay much for it either,
Well,
unless you're Clarence
he
Thomas.
he got a couple. He got a couple perks out of it, and Alito
Mm.
too. And then you've got the three Trump appointees. Again, you can look at the past. Although, as I've told people, and I really do believe this, 2016, we'll look back at that as a change moment for America. That will only grow in history. Trump's, first win. I still sit back. I was, you get the memories, right, from on Facebook. And I'm just looking at, I go through them virtually every day to check. Oh, there I was doing that then, or I was doing this then, and it takes you back to a period, of time, and I'm still amazed. And there's no other word for it. I'm amazed that Donald Trump won. As we look at it in retrospect, we can see some things that probably had an impact on it. Not the least of which is I was a little naive. I didn't think we were going to be in a post-racist society, but I didn't think that Barack Obama would generate that much antipathy from white Americans that he did, just the mere fact that he was president. You also had the anti-women. You had Hillary being a weak candidate. You had Comey doing the but her emails. So there were a lot of factors in it, but still. So one of the things I will say about Donald Trump is, A, you should not underestimate him. That's number one. And number two, he's unlike any political figure ever to run for, well, ever to win for president, run again. And right now, according to the polls, and again, we have to always say right now, according to the polls. And there's two problems with that, Brian. It's right now. The
Right,
election
he
is
hasn't
not
lost
tomorrow.
73 million votes either, so we can say that.
Well, that's true. He's gained votes, probably.
Probably a few,
And
yes.
the second thing is, if the first weeks of 2024 are any indication of how this political race is going to unfold, as was it Mae West said, strap in, you're in for a bumpy ride. We're going to be in for a bumpy ride, and what I mean, but we don't know who's going to get the last bump, and will it be a bump up or bump down? So right now, tonight, this week, a number of things happened. Frank Lutz, do you know who he is, Brian, at all?
Yes,
Name
Frank
ring a bell
Luntz.
to you?
He's a Republican. He's an asshole, actually. He's a Republican pollster.
Well, that's kind of being redundant, isn't it, these days?
Right,
But
but he's one of the
he's a
ones, I
he's a
forget.
pollster.
He started a lot
He's
of
a pollster.
crap.
Yeah, he's a pollster. But anyway,
He's the one that said that created the expression climate change instead of global warming. He wanted to have it switched. So Frank Luntz was instrumental in putting down the
but he also, his
climate
big
change
thing is
movement.
he's a pollster, right?
Right.
And he's done a relatively long time, and his name has become kind of synonymous with Republican polls. But he's not a Trumper. He's not pro-Trump. But they asked him this week, okay, Mister, look in your crystal ball and tell us who's going to. He said, right now, Donald Trump appears to be winning. Okay, and certainly from everything we see, that seems to be the case. So let's look at some of the things this week. If I'm going to talk about a volatile week and a change week that happened, okay? So you've already touched on one, but I want to just pick up a little bit more on it. I think we all need to ask ourselves this question. Now, when I say we all need, I'm talking about those of us on the non-Trumpian side of the line. And of course, the Trumpians aren't going to ask diddly squat. They're not going to question their fearless leader. Is Trump extremism getting more extreme? Yeah, that's an interesting question. Did it just go to color, Brian? No, back. I don't know what. Brian has no idea what he's doing.
I went to put a little color in mine. We were going to go all black and white, but I can't handle it. So, Dave, I gave you a little bit of color, just a little bit.
I don't want any color.
Okay, it's going off.
I don't care. Look,
Okay.
you're confusing the audience. Um, and you could actually use two remarks. One from
Good job,
Trump.
Jeff.
Trump last run, and one time this time. Of course, he said famously, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue in New York, and I wouldn't lose any votes.
Right.
I didn't believe that was true, but it is true. I do think his supporters, it wouldn't matter. And then, of course, this week, as you alluded to earlier, one of his defense attorneys said, basically, that was questioned, and he said, he was asked by a judge, one of the judges, are you saying that the president could order Navy SEAL Team 6 to kill a political rival, and he would not be held responsible for that? Could not be charged and tried? And the attorney played a little word salad games and played around. But basically, he said, unless the House and Senate impeach a president, no, he or she can't be. If that is indeed the findings when all this is done, we're in serious, serious trouble. Not that we're not now. But that means basically you have a do whatever you want card if you have the Senate or the House or both under your party's control. Now, to show how much things have changed, and I don't think necessarily for the better, when Richard Nixon, had he not resigned, there is no question historically that Richard Nixon would have been impeached, and the Senate would have found the estimates are about 97-3 that he was guilty. Right. Can you conceive of? I can't conceive of anything 97-3 in today's Senate. We look along party lines, and that is so. That alone to me makes it seem. And again, we're not just talking about Trump. We're talking about the whole MAGA movement. We're talking about attorneys. We're talking about politicians. We're talking about all this kind of thing. Comparing those two comments, I think we can say it's more extreme. I also think what we find is there's no bottom to what Donald Trump and MAGA will do. There's no bottom. Don't kid yourselves. Don't anyone kid themselves. There should be nothing that should surprise us that Donald Trump does or his followers do on their road downward in terms of what America should be, of course, in their mind, upward toward regaining.
When does he start creating his own uniform militia, like an SS? When does he start that crap?
Well, I think first he has to win. Okay, that's number one.
Or does he? At this point,
what is
can he do this in the next 6 months? Does he create some type of?
Could he? No.
I mean, it's Hitleristic, but
no, not. I mean, I just said you can't. I don't see how he could do that without the power of the presidency. What I think will happen is isolated incidents, and I want to talk about that a little bit later in a moment. But Trump himself this week was quoted as saying, "There will be bedlam, large B, in the country if I don't win." That's basically what he said. So has he learned his lesson about violence? I don't think so. I honestly don't believe that he has. And there's a new term that I learned, and you think you're pretty hip sometimes, you think you're kind of up on things, and I remember I kind of equate it to during the time that Stormy Daniels was in the news and I got to interview her. A term came there that I didn't know. I thought, motorboating. I didn't know what that was. I found a priest who knew what that was. It's a sexual term. But anyway, I found one, politics I try to keep kind of alert. And it's just really started to appear, but I guess it's been around for 3 years. Are you familiar with the term swatting? Swatting.
Well, recently, yes, swatting. Right.
What's that? What is it?
My understanding of swatting is trying to intimidate, say that you would have like a SWAT team that would come out or something like that? Is that
Well,
close?
basically, now what would happen is tonight, like if somebody didn't like you, like me, or me, and they wouldn't do that, they would actually make a phone call to 911
Hmm.
saying something was going on. And swatting comes from the SWAT team. And the idea is to get them called out. Now, not all, in all fairness, not all of them are right wing. But again, 94.2% or something like that probably are. Here are just a couple statistics. Uh, the idea of swatting or calling people in, been up 50% in the past 5 years. Just with this year, on Christmas Day, one of the attorneys, Jack Smith, prosecuting Trump, the SWAT team came to his house on Christmas Day for a report that he had just shot his wife. The judge in New York, same thing there. So we're seeing it with judges. You're seeing it with politicians. Uh, Again, I said majority is aimed at Democrats or anti-Trumpers, but your blonde-haired sexual fantasy, Marjorie Taylor Greene, somebody pulled that on her. Uh, Now you say, well, what's the big deal? Well, it's spreading all over. This I did not know. In 2022, 2023, there were SWAT calls made in 500 schools in America. Now, given the school shootings, right, that we should not have, but we do because of our crazy gun or lack of realistic gun regulations, the police really can't afford not to go, right? I mean, what are they going to do? Could you imagine? Oh, we think that's a hoax and it was real. So eventually someone will get seriously hurt. There's already been one fatality on one of the incidents where somebody got shot. But it's, again, you've got the President of the United States calling for insurrection. You've got the President of the United States now saying, if I don't get reelected, or if I don't get reelected or elected, shouldn't say reelected, if I don't get elected again, there'll be bedlam. This is America. You've said before that you thought that Republican politicians were leery of going against for violence, and I think this proves it. And now, violence is violence has always been part of American culture. Would you agree, Brian? I mean, we're
Right.
violent. We're a violent nation. We are,
Our
but
sports,
usually,
our popular sports are the more violent and physical ones.
but the idea of it is normally it wasn't the president calling for it
Or doing
domestically
nothing while it's happening, which I think is
or
even
doing
worse.
nothing, right? Which of course Trump did also. So you've got I would lay much of what's going on in terms of the increase at the foot of Donald Trump. What I don't know, Brian, and I'd ask your opinion on it. Is he just stupid? Does he think his words not have impact? Or does he honestly know how much it has impact and he doesn't care? I'm leaning toward the latter, that he does know how much impact it has and he just doesn't care. But I
That's a
don't know.
great question because on one hand you could say, well, he is an idiot. He has a very poor vocabulary. He says stupid shit. He doesn't seem to understand, who is the leader of what country. And on the other hand, he seems very slippery. He gets away with things. He seems to choose the right type of attorneys. He knows how to influence people at higher levels. I think at some point you have to say he just has a certain intuition for action that will lead to chaos. That's what he thrives on. And he seems to understand that. Like that's it's almost as if it's not that he really understands it. It's like a part of him. It is him. I don't know how else I can explain it because we could sit here all night trying to discuss whether he's actually an intelligent man or not. I just think it's just his very being was, however it was formed, that is what he does. He is like, a kid. As we know in education, Dave, and they say, well, the kids will smell blood if you're too weak with them. You give them a crack and they'll open the door wide. I think that Trump is just that type of animal that he just, because he thrives on chaos and he's learned to avoid prosecution. He just has an intuition. Not that he's intelligent. He's not intelligent, and I wouldn't even call it intelligent. I would just call it he has a skill. And that's all I could say.
And of course, we haven't heard too much recently, thankfully, of his children. Ivanka has kind of disappeared, but the one who does still hang around from time to time is Donnie Jr. And it
Yeah, he's a
fascinates
sick
me. You've
shit.
pointed this out before. You've pointed this out before on numerous occasions. The Republicans will blame. No, let me rephrase that. The Trumpians, the MAGA Trumpians and / Republicans will blame liberals or Democrats for the things that they actually do, right? So, there's still the thing about Hunter Biden and Hunter. Hunter was pretty cool. He shows up and, Hunter's not stupid. He shows up for his hearing and he said, I'll do it. But Hunter said, which I agree with, I'm only going to talk in public. He's not going to do it behind closed doors because
Right. It
wants
was
people
great
to
that he
hear what
showed up
said.
and put it right there. Like, I'm on the screen now. You said that I was a chicken shit. I'm right
Right.
here, but you won't see me. I thought that was
But at the
brilliant.
same, but at the same time, your girl, well, I shouldn't say your girl because you have two of them, but you're a blonde-haired fantasy girl, Marjorie Taylor Greene. If you listen to what she said in her remarks, she's criticizing for not being there, and he's sitting right in front of. I mean, it's just good Lord Almighty. Okay, let's see what the environmental people have to say. Well, if he becomes a dictator, Ivanka is going to be his vice president. I don't think he's a good name or running mate. He's going to keep it in the family. I know you can't tune in any week because you have all that stuff going on, Sandra. But next week, I think I want to talk a little bit about after Iowa, which we have coming up. I want to talk a little bit about just throw out some names of who could be his vice president. Of course, he mentioned last time, right? Ivanka would be a perfect. No, come on.
Well, literally, he could choose anybody in his family. It wouldn't matter because the state of the Republican Party is such it is Trump. So
Oh, it is.
what's better than Trump but another Trump, right? I mean, why wouldn't he choose somebody in his family?
Well, let's assume that he decided to stay with his eldest boy. Here was Donnie this week, again keeping this idea of Trump and violence. He was quoted as saying, "If you vote for Democrats, you are voting to send your conservative uncle to the re-education camps." What?
Yeah.
Huh? Now, Donald Trump has talked about camps. Well, Trev, unfortunately, as we get to the end of this, record profits are all over the place in a time when, and of course, I'm sure, it was always kind of been a truism, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's never been more true, but it certainly will be even more true if Donald Trump becomes president. I mean, and in fact, it would be interesting. Donald Trump will pick the rich,
It's a good
Elon
point
Musk.
that Sandy makes here, Dave. You might want to check that out.
Sandy,
Because I mean, it actually
You're-
it's funny,
you're
but it's
using
also
something-
truthful. I'm sure she's both on this.
she's using something that doesn't apply right now in the Trumpian world of the Republican Party. She's using logic.
Mhm.
Okay. There's you've heard it a lot of times too, or you see it a lot of times. I didn't really want to do it, but the president asked me, right? It's kind of hard to turn, the president down or the person running for office down. I will say this, not giving away not when we do them all. I would be very surprised, if it was anyone who at any point ran against him in this primary. I'd be surprised if it were Nikki Haley. I'd be shocked if it were Ron DeSantis. Of course, it's not going to be Chris Christie. But anyway, well, let's look at some other political things that happened this week you should be aware of just quickly. You've got a looming January 19th crisis, right? Government shutdown.
Correct.
Mike Johnson, who...
And he may not be able to make a deal.
Well, that's the problem. There are enough... I don't even know what to call them. MAGA, superior, MAGA congressmen and women, that it makes it in jeopardy. Again, your sexual fantasy was busy this week.
You must have me with a lot of those fantasies there. I don't know. I can't keep up with all the fantasies I
haven't gotten your other one yet. It was more. Okay. It was more your blonde-haired fantasy girl this week. Okay. She's already called. She's already called for a vote to remove Johnson from his speakership. Now, so you got that coming up on the 19th. You've got the Iowa caucuses. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Donald Trump's going to win the Iowa caucus. What will be interesting, and this I kind of blame the media for, even though being an old time political journalist, I understand why. They have to have something to write about and make a race out of it. There really is no race. It's Donald Trump's and then everybody else, But we will see, there is some thought that Iowa's weather will have some kind of impact. It's pretty bad out there in terms of the weather, so that could keep the voting down.
Well, the very fact that if it keeps numbers down, forget about who it helps or hurts. If you just keep the numbers down, it hurts Trump in the sense that the Trumpers don't come out. Doesn't mean anybody else comes out, but the actual number of people voting.
That's the idea. I mean, I don't think there's any way that Nikki Haley can do in Iowa, and
I don't know about New Hampshire. She might be able to do it in New Hampshire.
Well, there's some people who think with Chris Christie again, who dropped out, that she would pick up the Christie vote. Well, again, this is part of why we don't just say, oh, it's done. We will see. Iowa and New Hampshire.
I'll tell you what. I'll make a prediction. If Nikki Haley happens to win Iowa, she will end up right next to Ivana Trump.
That could happen.
And by the way, that is so. We've talked about that before, Dave, but so bizarre that she is buried on his golf course. Not near anything. It's just.
But that's Trump, because he does have the ability to be a newsmaker, and that is what you would hope is people say, well, that's kind of there'd be enough of these things. Well, that's too weird to do that. No, I don't think he should do that. And he, as Sandy pointed out earlier, who would want to be his vice president? When he tried to he gave the okay to kill his previous vice president.
It has to be an absolute lackey or a family member. I mean, we knew that Pence was a lackey, but he still had an ounce of understanding, or at least the idea that maybe it wasn't going to go a certain way for Trump, and he better do the right thing. But that's out of there now. Now Trump's going to make sure that he has. And I would think his son would be one of them. Honestly, I think you're right. I think they could choose Ivanka. It sounds absurd, but look, we have. Well,
I know. I said, no. The norm. There is no normal, and there is no bottom with Trump. We've already established that. Another thing that surfaced this week is widespread erroneous reports about a horrific film having Hillary Clinton and Huma Abedin raping and mutilating a prepubescent girl. Now, what is so scary about that is, with AI and on the dark web now, you could actually put that together. You realize that, Brian, right?
Right.
And so
Deep fake.
a deep fake, right? That's what they call deep fake, and they're getting better and better and better at it, um, which is it's an overall concern. You know, if you can't believe your eyes, you can't believe your ears. What do you believe? And what
Right.
happens so often? These stories get interwoven, right? You've got the Pizza Gate with Comet Ping Pong here in D.C., place that I frequent. It was supposed to occur in the basement. There is no basement there. Blah blah blah. You've got Epstein. Things have grabbed from that. They just pull and twist. You've got Matthew Weiner, who did have a problem.
Oh, Anthony
And
Weiner, right? Yeah.
yeah, and I said Matthew, didn't I, Anthony? Yeah,
Sure.
and so there's you got all this going on. Now we've talked at length too. Switch gears a little bit. We've talked at length too. Excuse me, about
Do you have
Biden.
COVID, Dave? Do you have COVID?
I do not have COVID, Brian.
Okay. Sounds like you have COVID.
No, that was you last week.
Okay.
Joe Biden has
Don't cough.
many problems, right? Many problems right now. The major one is I think he has done much better in areas that he's hit on than he's somebody else. The economy is not where it was, right? But everybody just says Joe. Not everybody, but he doesn't get credit for. And of course, he has the age problem, but he doesn't need help. And he got some help, negative help, if you will, I should say, Trump's this week from two sources or two different things. Did you follow it all? Which it doesn't seem like a major thing, but it is. Did you follow it all? The Lloyd Austin, the defense secretary.
Yes, the pancreatic cancer, and he didn't say anything. It is crazy though. It's just
I mean,
stupid.
now, of course, that there's great privacy involved. Like if I were stricken right now and you were to call the hospital to find out, even though we're partners in this, how you're doing, they can't tell you, because of you're only authorized to release information to people that are, in your HIPAA document. So there's part of that. But when you take a position, or sometimes when a position is handed to you, you give up privacy, and certainly the defense secretary. And it doesn't help that we've got Ukraine and Russia, right? We've got the Palestinian, Gaza, Israel crisis. We're bombing
The
Yemen.
Red Sea. Yeah.
We got Yemen,
The
and all this is
Houthis.
going on. And it was like this as the details about. They didn't tell anybody. The president didn't even know his secretary. Well, that doesn't look good. Okay,
No.
it doesn't. And they're going to, they after the fact, they said, well, I guess we're gonna have to have policies to cover this kind of thing. What do you mean? You didn't have it before? And some of the people who know Austin well said, well, he's always been private. Got that. Now, Sandy, do you mean he doesn't have it, or I don't know what she means by that?
I
Sandy,
thought it was prostate. I'm sorry if I got it
no,
wrong.
it is prostate. Oh, I see. No, I thought she said didn't have. No, she said it was prostate cancer. And actually, it was two things. It was a prostate cancer, then complications from a urinary tract infection that developed, and then he went back in, but he was in and out, and then in, and I think it was the longest period was 4 days when he was, incommunicado. Normally, that would fall. Yeah, that's true. Most Americans don't know who he is, but it gives ammunition if you want to claim that Joe Biden is senile and doesn't know what he's doing. It may not be fair, right? But certainly that's it's his appointment, and the guy disappeared at a time when we're there. The other one, which I think is going to be even more interesting, and of course Americans will be a little bit more fascinated because it's got the sexual angle in this one. Are you familiar with the charges that were lodged against Fannie Wills, the Fulton County prosecutor?
Did I say prostate? It's pancreas.
No,
Oh, I said pancreatic. I'm sorry. Yeah.
got it. Thanks, Sandy. Yeah, I know. No, Sandy was right.
My apologies, folks.
Now
It
getting
began with
back.
P. That's all I remember.
Now I said, are you familiar with the Fannie Wills the Fulton County
Yeah, they're
prosecutor.
trying to say that, well, what may be true, she's had an affair with somebody, and that they're trying to do the personal thing while his
Well, of
court
course,
case goes on.
again, basically what it
Distractions.
looks like, yes. And she's black and she's a woman, and they said her supporters have said, well, she's been charged with all this before. What is interesting, hey Judy, what is interesting is, I think, is the fact that a lot of this came out of a divorce proceeding hearing, the divorce between the prosecutor and his wife, and Miss Wills has been named as one of the reasons, the other woman, if you will, supposedly, and again, this is supposedly, allegedly, there are receipts of them taking trips together, the two of them, to Caribbean and Florida and some other places. My point is, why, why did Hillary have the separate server? Why did Lloyd Austin not call somebody? Why would Wills do that if indeed she did do that? When you know you're under the gun, why? And I think there's a problem that powerful people often think it's not going to happen to me, or they're not going to do it, or the rules are different. And certainly you said numerous occasions, the rules don't seem to apply to Donald Trump. He never gets caught, right? I mean, he never gets.
Well, not only that, he's so low that when things like that happen, it's accepted. But when it happens to somebody else, automatically it's a strike against them, and anything they do or say outside of that topic, they've got to be wrong because of that, the association. It's sickening, but it's the way they play that type of game, Dave, and you know it, and I know it, and you have to be prepared for it.
What I don't get sometimes, well, it just doesn't go together. It doesn't slot into the slots. Trump is great at playing the victim, and yet he's perceived as this powerhouse, powerful guy. Right? Well, you can't have both, right? You can't have both. You're one or the other. I mean, situationally, he tried that again this week. In his, did you see where? Of course, I'm sure you did, where he wanted to make his closing argument in the case in New York.
Yes, indeed.
And they said no, but they said he could talk as long as he kept it. The judge basically said you could talk as long as you agree to discuss and focus on the case.
Right.
Trump
no
did
new
not.
information should come in.
Trump,
Right.
Trump did not. He just lasted into a diatribe, and said, we have a situation where I am an innocent man. I'm being persecuted by someone running for office. I think you have to go outside the bounds. Wait a minute. If you look through that, he's saying I'm special, or this, yeah, I agree, Judy. It is his business, except if it doesn't affect her ability. Again, she could have chosen anybody. I would have chosen someone else. If I were having an affair, I would not put that person as my lead, and he's the lead prosecutor. And there is some question, apparently, sort of like some of the people that Trump appointed, he doesn't have a great amount of experience in that kind of thing. But again, we'll have to see how it unfolds. And certainly you have to be somewhat skeptical, as I say. Being a woman and being black, she's been targeted before, so you have to be somewhat skeptical of that. Now, Donald Trump didn't stop there. He just doesn't know where to stop. He had the nerve. How the hell? Well, maybe he doesn't want to win this case. I don't know. Maybe, in a way, it works to his advantage not to win it. He's not going to pay
Right.
$370 million.
No.
He's going to
again, he can appeal it, and then
he's going to appeal it, and it's going to make him look like, with his supporters do,
And
every
if he had to
time.
pay it, and he loses the appeal, he'll just declare bankruptcy.
But the other thing would be, they're picking on me. They're picking on me, and
Right.
that's what he said. But he actually, this was, I thought, was not brazenly bold. It was just friggin' stupid. He looked at the judge. The judge is getting ready to cut him off, and the judge said, "I'll give you another minute." And the judge, he looked at the judge and said, "I know this is boring you." That judge, holds your fate. I would be civil. I would be, but again, I'm not Donald Trump. The last person I want to focus on tonight is someone. Well, that's not true. I said earlier, and my apologies, I didn't do this. I don't want you tonight to dream solely of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Her nemesis or
That
opposite,
should be a problem.
or bracket, is
Maybe a
Colorado's
nightmare.
Lauren Boebert. Yeah. And did you see Lauren made the news again this week?
Was she in another theater or anything like that, or no?
Close. Her husband charged her with assault for punching him in the nose, and in trying to present it accurately, when the police arrived, they said he was drunk and surly and disrespectful, while she honestly just stood there and took it. But it's like, Judy's got a point, but it's a troubling point. When does your personal life impact your professional life, right? I don't know that. I'm not really sure, but I do think two things. Once you put yourself in the, you choose to run for Congress and you win presidency, you take an appointed position, you win American Idol and go on and have a career. All those things, I think, do put some different perspective on how much privacy you are entitled to or should expect. And certainly we're at a point now in America where there are people who will print or put online, at least, anything, no matter what it will do to anyone else in terms of their problem. Let's see. I would agree to marry. Boebert clearly has a drinking problem. Anybody that would drink. Well, yeah. I mean, this guy does. And again, I don't know, but they're all, Brian, and you know this. You've talked about it. I've talked about it. If you're going to go with talk about family values and personal morality, then you should have family values and exhibit personal morality. If you don't, so
start with yourself, basically.
Your senator, Mr. Menendez, this week did the same thing. He's
another one.
Victim role. He's corrupt as shit. There's no doubt about that. He got away last time. This time, I think they've got him dead to rights.
Right.
And he refuses to resign. And but he's got somebody who
He'd make a perfect Republican, Dave.
Well, John Fetterman, the
Fetterman called him out.
Yeah, Fetterman did call him out. Of course, there are people who say Fetterman shouldn't be a senator. He wears hoodies. What?
I don't care what he wears.
No, it's that way. All right. Well, what woman would you say, non-political woman, has been 2023's biggest newsmaker?
Without a doubt, Taylor Swift.
You got it. Well, we finally got her involved in politics now. I don't know if you were following that story this week. Did you see that?
Say that again.
Taylor Swift is now involved in politics. Did you see that story this week?
If I did, I only saw the headline.
Okay, so here's what we got. For a while now, Taylor Swift, who is a Democrat and is a liberal, okay, has been involved with an organization called Vote.org. Vote.org is, remember when MTV a few years ago ran the big campaign to get young people to vote? Vote.org is an organization like that. And of course, Taylor Swift, whether you like her or not, is a tremendous influencer. So apparently, a year ago, maybe somewhere within 2020, at a Pentagon conference, one of the people talked about influences, and he mentioned her as an influencer, right? Which is just, an innocuous thing. Well, on your favorite TV show, the Jesse Waters Fox Report, which you watch all the time, hoping that Lauren and Marjorie will be there, a former FBI agent, Stuart Kaplan, comes out and says that it's excuse me, that
You're right, Dave. You're right.
Yep, Taylor Swift is part of a covert operation mounted by the Biden administration to win the election. And why they would choose the Pentagon, I mean, again, it makes no sense. That's his charge. And then he starts speaking about the Pentagon. And Jesse jumps in, who's, I think, might even be worse. You know, he could even be worse than Tucker in some ways. Hannity is kind of in a class by himself. But anyway, so Jesse comes up, and the two of them start talking, and all the while under this, right? They're talking about Taylor Swift and this secret operation, Pentagon operation to sway the vote for Biden. Underneath all this, they run the thing under the words
Chiron, whatever it is.
Yeah, Chiron. And there were two of them. Is Taylor Swift a Pentagon psyop? Is Taylor Swift a Pentagon asset? They kept.
Now, I did see that headline on CNN.
Yeah.
I didn't read it. It just seemed so absurd.
Now, what you have again is, falsehood. Taylor Swift is not based on the fact that it's in Fox News. How many viewers do they have? And there's like 12 people that watch Fox News, probably keep an eye on it. The rest of them are maggots. And they now believe, probably since their news told them, that Hillary and her aide had this abuse film. And Taylor Swift is an asset. But sometimes, I just don't get people. And it reaches out another person on the other side that's been in the news, back with Epstein. And have you been following the Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Kimmel story?
Yeah, where Kimmel's going to threaten to sue him if he continues to say that he should be on his list.
Again, I mean, Aaron Rodgers he's very good at Jeopardy. That's one thing he is good at. He was one of the guest hosts for a while, just doing that before they decided anything. But I mean, Aaron Rodgers got a great arm, good quarterback. Maybe not as good as Aaron thinks he is. He only won one Super Bowl. But the idea is, he's anti-vaxxer. He has all these kinds of things going on. And He comes out and he says, he links Kimmel to Epstein, which just, we don't know. And we don't know. And maybe we shouldn't do this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you think Bill Clinton took sexual privileges from Jeffrey Epstein? I do.
I would say that, given what he did with Monica Lewinsky, and given the fact that he absolutely knew that word wouldn't get out, he would do it.
Well, I think with Bill Clinton, I'm not giving an excuse. I just I had a chance down here to talk to a few big-time reporters and biographers who've done him. They said he never lost that chubby band character that he was, right? That probably nobody, no girls wanted, and you could see that. I mean, he was a womanizer. At that kind of thing, I think it is. Now, what do you think Donald Trump did?
I'd say he would. I mean, what's the difference between Stormy Daniels and somebody else? If she's 16, to him, he sees human beings as nothing. He's like Putin. Human beings are just serfs to him. So what would it matter? I mean,
I don't know.
He has no sense of ethics. So I don't know. He himself said, well, they were a little too young for me, but I don't agree with that, because every time a wife gets more than 40 years of age, he gets rid of them.
Well, he does put them on the golf course later.
He does put them. Well, yeah, that's true. But no, I would say, why not? He probably did. He probably did.
And if you also noticed over the past couple weeks, and it's continuing, we're refighting the causes of the Civil War. That's become an issue. and
They're reinventing the
history.
Civil War. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're reinventing the Civil War being the lost cause of the South, the same way they're reinventing January 6th not being a political insurrection. Judy, yep, you get no argument from me on that. What happens though is the fact that there was a time when I thought Trump might be an aberration. I'm not so sure he is an aberration now. I think the Republican Party is what you see. Now, will there be anybody with his personality? I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, what do you think? If let's just a thought experiment. If Trump had a heart attack and died today, do you think that the party would change at all?
Well, yes, from this standpoint. Anytime you switch someone, right, there's going to be a change.
Right, and
There is
they
no
vie for power, and
there
they
is no
wouldn't be
doubt.
afraid of Trump anymore.
Yeah, but
They might be afraid
who
of
would
his
who
Trump.
would emerge? I think if I were Republicans and I wanted the most viable candidate, I think I'd go with Nikki Haley. To be
Right,
able to.
right.
Ron DeSantis
She's the
is
only
like,
one that could pull votes from Democrats, only because I think because she's female and she comes across as, compared to Trump, she comes across as level-headed.
right. She's attractive.
And by the way, I
that's-
would prefer her to Trump if I had to choose.
Well,
I don't like her.
no. Well, who? Yeah. I mean, it is an interesting question. It's exercise. It's just a thought exercise. Right now,
As Trev says here, he says that the base won't change, so they
no,
all
and I would have to. I mean, I don't think Trump created the base. It was there. He cult of personality. They were waiting for this. There's another big movement. Maybe we'll talk about it next week because I don't really have a lot of time now. We're kind of, where the video that Trump put out. I don't know if you saw that. He didn't. He didn't make this video. He posted is a video where it actually says Trump is God's choice.
Yeah, that I did. Yeah, you know what? I posted something like that, and that was disgusting. But there are people, there are evangelicals, they believe he is an instrument of God.
Well, if you believe, think about it. Think about it for a moment. If you believe God controls everything, and Donald Trump won the election, God must want him to win the election, right? I mean, that's one way they.
Yeah, but the question is, why did he lose the election? That's the thing. I mean,
because
their logic,
because Joe Biden stole it,
or he's the double. That's going to be the next thing.
Yep, and that's exactly where
just so stupid
where we stand. It would be nice to have a show once, which I don't think we're going to have between now and November. The other thing that would cause that is if indeed Trump were found guilty of something and the ruling was it precluded him from serving in office. But I think we're going to go down starting this week, you could say, with Iowa, and I believe Trump will win Iowa. I believe Trump will win New Hampshire. I think Nikki Haley will do better in New Hampshire than she does in Iowa. But I don't think it's still going to be 20 or 30 points difference, and that's pretty hard to overcome when neither one of those states are Trumpian states necessarily. And once you get there, by Super Tuesday, he'll have the delegates. So we will be talking about the Joe Biden Donald Trump election between now and then, barring something unforeseen. So I think each last thing I have, we talked a lot of pessimistic stuff tonight, and is there anything that gave you optimism this week, Brian? Anything you saw?
Optimism week. Good question. And that's not a trick question. Just optimism. I think that I had a general feel that, I guess, the fact that I thought that maybe Nikki Haley is getting him nervous, that makes me think there could be something, if she could win a primary early, that maybe it would gain momentum like a snowball, rolling down the hill. Is that the only thing? I mean, there's not much to be really, hopeful about, Dave. I mean,
No,
if I'm
yeah,
going to be an honest person, but I think I feel like, or maybe that they'll just get tired of him at some point.
no.
But I certainly have no faith in the legal system. I mean, it does. Like I said, it goes back to Bannon. I mean, here's a guy who's convicted, and for a year and a half, he's out on appeal. And the judge knew what he was doing. And I say this is exactly what's going to happen. As Judy's kind of mentioning with the Supreme Court, they will do what he wants, and that's that.
Well, we shall see what we shall see. Not trying to hide anything, or say, well, asked to predict right now. You'd have two choices. Can Dump win if he's in jail? There's been some polling done on that, and there seems to be a weakening of his numbers, if indeed that were the case. So I think the question is, can he win in prison or in jail, or after committing a crime? If he's allowed to run, I think the answer is still yes, but I would feel a lot better with something like that, because some of the numbers show that there are people who said, well, he's not been convicted of anything, so he didn't do anything wrong. Now, does that mean they would change their vote, or would do that? The other thing I'd ask people next week, out there, it's interesting. I've lost contact with everybody I used to argue with about Trump. I mean, I have no Trumpian friends. I don't associate with Trump. I mean, they're all gone, which is fine with me. But again, just proof positive that we're a divided nation. So divided we stand. I don't see any coming together. We're not going to sit around the campfire and sing Kumbaya. I think we all need, when we get a few quiet moments, to think about, to answer this question. I'll leave with this question. What can I do with my limited resources to ensure that Donald Trump doesn't regain the presidency? I mean, I think that's every as much as often we should ask that.
We do the same thing we did in 2016.
Yep. All right, Brian.
All right, Dave. Thank you.
Last before we go, we saw tonight we have some weather shut-ins and some weather out there. It's last I heard. I'll go check the score now, but in Kansas City they were playing football where
16-7.
Kansas City.
Kansas City. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. But also, it was like minus 31, I think, with wind chill.
Right.
So we shall see what we shall see. Brian, until next week, be good. And hey, Kim, it has been a long time. Where have you been? Glad to see you on board. All right, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you. And stay warm. And maybe we'll get some snow in a couple of days, Dave. Who knows?
Who knows?
It's been a few years, right? All right, folks. Enjoy. See ya.